when you're breaking your body down and rebuilding it back up, like it's just a process. And a lot of times the body starts to squeal or you'll start to feel that wear and tear once you actually are receiving those results and those gains and that growth. And so it always seems like it's going to be a process of 5 steps forward, you're pushing. And then once you feel that body saying, all right, now, give me a break, it's not a sign that you're messing up. It's a sign that you actually you achieved what you wanted. You've grown, you've broken your body down, right? But you've been pushing so long, now it needs a little breather. And so I would say, don't be afraid to take that step or 2 steps back.
Right.
Because without taking that, your body's saying, I don't have really much more room to keep going like this. Right? You've been pushing me and we're doing it. But now give me a time to recover and to reset and to fully heal up. Yeah. So we can take another 5 steps forward. Yeah. So it's really like 5 steps forward, 2 steps back.
Right.
5 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's the push, recover, push, recover. And some people have active recovery. That's why they build into their program. They say, well, Wednesdays I just go get a massage at Massage Envy and I sit in the normal tech and the blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Chiropractor. They build it in. But if you don't have it built in, this is like just a word of advice. Just once you start feeling your body kind of like real too achy and you got all these kind of complications, give your body 2 weeks just to reset. Just to reset. And that's
no weights.
Huh?
No weights.
No weights. Reset. Just get back to flexibility. Maybe take some yoga classes or something like that. You know what I mean? And just let it fully heal. And then, boom, now you can go create a new ceiling.
Right.
But injuries and setbacks always happen right when we get to that capacity and we don't listen. And I've been in that position too many times. I'm get there and I'm just like, go harder, right? Because it's an athlete mentality. I don't push through the pain. If it's pain or injury, there's a difference, right? If it's just pain, you can push through, you keep going. If it's injury, then stop. But so you then have this mentality of, I'm going to keep going until I'm injured. Because I don't know how to stop through the pain. I'm like, whatever. And so now I'm trying to be smart. Like, okay, I got to the point where I can sprint. I got to the point where I can like strike out again, doing full lunge walks, doing broad jumps. And then now my legs, I had this big, some bubble thing behind my hamstring on this one. This one didn't trip. And I was just like, all right. I said, so let me not take this as a negative sign and be irritated that I have to slow down. Let me take it as a positive sign that I was able to now advance my mobility to the point to where I can do all of that stuff. Now I just have to be wise enough to know, okay, let me throttle it back. Let me take time to do the shit I don't like to do. Stretch your groin. Who the hell wants to do that? Nobody. But you got to.
Yeah.
You know
I mean, and that's a huge lesson there because, you know, if we don't take the time to gain wisdom and seek guidance from those that have done it in different ways and have done it and have more expertise, right? That's why we use the word guide so much. It's like seeking guidance. And sometimes we get in our own way. I know I do constantly. I know that was one of the biggest shortfalls of my young adulthood was not being able to receive the right guidance. And I think there's a difference between receiving orders, following orders, seeking guidance, accepting guidance, 2 completely different things. And it's popular to throw the word lead and leader and follower. And, you know, it's very popular in the modern world of, you know, are you a leader? Why aren't you a leader? Are you a leader?
Yep.
And I think there's a lot that can be learned. A lot of leadership can be learned by following. And there are times where if we stay too much in the leadership lane, what can happen is that we don't learn. And more, we don't remain curious about different things. And I think that's something that I think if everyone was introspective about, they can all feel, I don't want to say guilty, but you know, that they've all experienced at one time or another. That if they've gotten to a leadership perspective, are they continuing to learn, right? You and I talked about what are the tools out there that we need to learn right now.
Thanks.
And sometimes we can get ahead of ourselves. So your example is exactly there, which is, you know, how as the evolution of our body, how do we even learn what our body needs? How do we learn what would be most productive in utilizing the tool of our body, right? It's, you know, we're talking about some of the other tools that are available right now from a content perspective, right? With the CapCut, right? What are the tools that are already there
Yep.
That once someone shows you, right, you just showed me something, and I'm like, that was already there. You're like, yeah, that was already there, and I'm like, got it. Thank you, right? So as we continue to learn, so to your metaphor, it's exactly the same thing. How do we continue to learn what's best for our body at our age, at our body composition at the moment? And I think because that's an ever moving target, it means that we need to be better shooters and just continuing that ready, fire, aim metaphor. And, what do we need to continuously learn to utilize the tools that we have? And I know that's something that I'm terrible at when it comes to taking rest. Sometimes I'm just like, no, I need to, do this and push here and push there. And I've come to learn that it can be very counterintuitive to not get the right guidance, right? And there's a huge difference. I mean, I didn't hire my first coach until this year. And I always saw people online say, oh, if you want to go to the next level, you got to hire a coach, you got to hire a coach, you got to hire a coach. And I always thought that was just coaches trying to sell their business instead of the reality behind it, which is if you've plateaued in any area of your life, sometimes it can be challenging. And one of the points of that is this idea of, are you frozen where you are at the moment? And I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and he says, you know what, Jason, I don't feel the fire. I don't feel the drive. And I said, hey, listen, can I be completely honest with you? And he's like, yeah. So you're comfortable. You drive a Mercedes, you make X amount of dollars, you have a great apartment, you got a dog. I said, you're frozen. And he said, what do you mean? I said, you're frozen. You are in a block of ice. You are telling me that you don't feel fire. You don't feel passionate about life. You're frozen.
Yep.
And he said, what do I do? I said, hire a coach. And he looked at me like I was crazy, because he's someone that coaches. He's a high-end soccer coach.
Yep. And
I could see his eyes at first, a look of confusion. But then as soon as it plugged into what he does professionally, I said, well, wait a second. Your trade is working with people that want to take their game to the next level.
Nice.
And they hire you.
Yep.
So the whole idea is that you want to take your game. Life is just a game, by the way. You want to take the game of life to the next level because you've plateaued. You need to hire a coach. And his eyes just kind of lit up, and he's like, shit, that makes sense. And I said, look, I did it recently. I was a non-believer for a long time. I did it recently. I was frozen. I took a bunch of money. I lit it on fire and threw it at my feet. And guess what ends up happening? Magically, that heat of you knowing you've made that investment, it pushes you a little differently.
Oh, yeah.
And that, to me, melted a lot of the ice that I was frozen and where I was frozen. So the question is that, are you frozen in life, and what do you need to do to spark that flame? Sometimes it's hiring a coach. Sometimes it's putting yourself on death ground, as Robert Greene says, giving yourself no choice, no plan B. Not everyone has to do that. Brad Lee is famous for saying, like, look, there's no problem having a plan B. I understand that. It depends on the person. So the question is that if you're frozen in life, what do you need to set on fire? And that's a challenging thing. Yeah, everyone has to decide what it is on their own. I think coaching is a great place for somebody to be able to take a bunch of money, light it up, throw it at their feet, because it's amazing how people show up once they pay for it. It's amazing. It's amazing how people don't show up to a free class on a Saturday morning, but if they've paid $500 for the class, everybody shows up on time, ready to go. So,
definitely. I mean, that highlights a lot of things in my mind. Just about being frozen and just dissecting that. It makes a lot of sense. I feel
it's interesting, right?
It's interesting. It's a good one to unpack, and it has a lot of legs, because when you think about it, it's not an outcome of negativity.
Right.
And I think that's probably what makes it so hard to accept and to acknowledge, is the fact of, like, I was listening to a sermon recently, and they were talking about purpose, and they were saying that the process that you put together as far as identifying, understanding, and actually pursuing what your purpose is developed through pain. And they're saying that pain is kind of what generates the urgency for you to try to actually figure things out. And so the outcome of being frozen is generally from getting to a place of where you probably have achieved a few things on your task list, on your goal board. You've gotten it. So now is there anything else on that goal board to go get until you're like, I'm well fed, right? I got the house, I got the kids, I got da-da-da. What's next? Because they're saying is whatever is on that goal board that's not connected to purpose will eventually just settle.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. It's a great point, and the question there is, what is your purpose? And another good metaphor is what happens to a muscle if you don't use it? It starts to atrophy, right? It gets frozen.
Yeah,
right. Your mobility is limited, right? If you don't use a muscle for a certain amount of time, like, oh man, I'm tight. I'm not as flexible as I used to be. At the same time, it is possible to stay flexible for a pretty long time if you seek the right guidance and get the right coaching in your life, right? You want flexibility, you might need to incorporate yoga into your routine, right? Sure. Phil Jackson's famous for bringing the Zen yogis into a highly competitive, no, I'm just going to go environment. And did that extend the physicality of some of his athletes? Maybe. I don't know the exact answer. I would assume it did. Right. I would assume it did in a longer, longevity from a flexibility perspective. It's the same concept. It's saying if you don't use it, you lose it. If you're comfortable, you're not going to push a little bit harder. You're okay with that. And a lot of people are just, and I really like this idea of the word frozen.
I do too.
Because it's the fight or flight. And I think there should be another one that's in there. It's fight, flight, or freeze, right? And it's the deer in the headlights, right? How many people are a deer in headlights?
I like that.
Because it's just, you could be in front of something, a car is coming at you, and you might freeze.
Facts.
You might fight and be like, okay, cool. All right, car, I'm going to put my shoulder.
Right.
Have that.
A lot of people freeze.
It's like, all right, car's coming, I'm going to run away. This opportunity's coming, I'm going to run away. This new change in AI is coming, I'm going to run away, right? Or I'm going to try and fight the AI coming. Good luck, right? Or am I going to freeze with the opportunity that AI could present to me in my business?
You know what's interesting about that?
What's up?
I'll be brief. Is that they attribute the freeze to fear.
Yep.
And that can have its own legs. It's about we freeze when we're fearful of the outcome.
Completely.
Right? Whether the projected outcome or whether, you know what I mean? It's just like that's when we freeze.
Completely.
You
are 100% right. You're 100% right. And it goes back to my buddy where he's in a certain place and it's that comfort. So where's the fear component come into play? Fear of losing what he already has. That's where the fear comes in.
Right.
Exactly. So you're 100% right. It's like he's driving a Mercedes. He's got a nice apartment. Life is fine. Like, so the fear component that's keeping him frozen is losing what he already has. Right. It's just he's playing the video game at level 2.
Right.
And he's getting through the end. Like you play Mario Brothers growing up. You ever get to Mario Brothers where you know all the jumps?
Oh, yeah.
Right? When you're like, here now, all right, and then there's an alligator coming.
Because you got to redo the levels, and you're like, all right, I'm going to hurt.
But you've done it so many times.
Facts.
That getting through level 2, you could almost do it on autopilot.
Mindless.
Right? And you're just like, all right, then I know, and then the tunnel, but I know this tunnel's crap, but that tunnel is the portal, so you pull yourself down.
Yep.
And then I know there's a hidden one up over here.
Facts.
Right? So it's the same concept. And again, guilty also. This is, I'm not pointing a finger at anybody.
Right.
Guilty as well. The question is that where are we frozen in life and what's the reason? Fear. And are we frozen out of lack of capabilities, lack of, everyone loves throwing around the word, motivation, right? It's like, well, sometimes they seek that outside motivation to be the flame to get them unfrozen. The challenge there is that then you're always seeking outside flame of motivation rather than saying, okay, what's the inspiration and how do I set my own fire? Again, easier said than done. We all need motivation from time to time, right? We're all human. So we all need it from time to time. We all need inspiration from time to time. We all need a kind word from time to time. We all need a kick in the ass from time to time. All of those are sparks.
True.
So the question is that what sparks you? And where can you create your own sparks? At the same time, sometimes a spark is you seeking external motivation. No problem. No problem. You want to seek external motivation by putting a YouTube clip on? Great.
Yep.
You want to seek external motivation by going to look at open houses for homes that you want to buy? Great. You want to spark motivate. You want to spark something by going to a Ferrari dealership or a Rolls Royce dealership? Absolutely. You want to spark by being introspective and thinking about death? Okay, that goes back to stoicism that we talked about. That could be a spark, right? Thinking about your own mortality can be a spark. It doesn't
100%.
always have to be sunshine and butterflies.
Right.
A spark could be, what am I going to look like at 90 years old? What is it going to feel like to sit in to lay in a bed staring at the ceiling, knowing that I would give anything possible in the world to be exactly where I am at this moment right now. And you're here right now. That should spark something in you. So the question is, are you frozen? What do you need to spark yourself internally and externally to set that fire? That's all it really comes down to. I think some of the most successful people in the world have a fire in them. You hear that. Oh, he's got a fire in him. Oh, she's got a fire in her. Right. So therein lies the lesson. What do you need to spark that fire? Finding your purpose, right? Is your purpose your fire? In theory, it should be.
Yep.
And again, sometimes it has to be good. Sometimes it has to be bad. Sometimes to spark it, you got to think about bad things. And people are very uncomfortable thinking of that.
Yeah.
I remember watching an interview with Gary Vee once, and somebody asked him, like, how do you stay so positive and about life? And he said something that caught the interviewer completely off guard. And he said, well, I think if I got a phone call that one of my kids was killed or something like that, and you're like, whoa, and the interviewer is expecting him, because he always lives in a place of, of a certain energy, of uplifting, of, hey, you can do it, right? So they were thrown aback, and he's like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, you have to be able to feel the dark in order to appreciate the light.
100%.
And when he said that, you can see the interviewer was completely caught off guard, but I respect the perspective. If he uses that as a spark to say, hey, you know what? This speed bump in the road, this pothole that I see coming, this flat tire that I just got because I hit a pothole, even though I asked someone to fix that pothole for the last 2 months, and now it caused a flat tire that I have to deal with when that person didn't do their job. Okay. But you know what? This other phone call didn't come in. And I respect that. That's a gangster right there. For him to be able to frame it and to not go down a dark path, if you can peek into the darkness and come out, woo, that's a superpower.
Yeah.
That's a super, because that's hard.
Well,
that's hard to do.
Seeds are nurtured in the dark. That's when seeds are nurtured. You bury a seed, right? And that's kind of that pain contrast, pain, purpose, darkness, right? Growth is developed in the darkness, right? It's just not having a negative perception on what darkness really is, right? Darkness can equal great things. Any growth is manifested through a dark space, right? A isolated space, right? Where you can be nurtured, where there's limited distractions. And so it's almost bringing it back to that Batman, right? I was raised in the dark. I was born in the dark, right? When you are chasing purpose, when you're chasing fulfillment, when you're chasing growth, you spend a lot of time in isolation. You spend a lot of time buried. And as we continue to go through life, you're going to continuously be buried. And if you want to grow some more, what are you going to be? Buried.
Yep.
If you're a farmer, the seasons repeat themselves. It's not like you go through the winter one time. No, you're going to go through the winter, go back to the summer. You're going back to the winter because you're trying to do what? Continuously to grow crops. Unless you want to stop growing crops. So if we're a crop and we want to keep growing, we're going to have to continuously go through winters. And the moment we don't want to go through another winter, then we think we're done growing. And so we have to just change our mindset, our perception to perceive the darkness as leverage it. And kind of when you've been forged in that, when you're someone who prides yourself on continuously growing, continuously getting closer to the goal setting and goal chasing and goal achieving, that means you have embraced now the process of being buried. So when you think in your mind like, hey, what's the next level? What's the next step? Okay, I got here, great. Now what's next? Okay, now it's time to go through winter. When's winter time coming? Okay, cool. Bury me now. You know what I mean? It's like every time people now are fixated on the hot cold contrast of healing the body and helping the body. But what do? You submerge yourself in a very uncomfortable state. It's not comfortable sitting in a cryo chamber. It's not comfortable getting down to your neck in freezing cold water. But what does it do for the body? It sparks a reaction in the body when you make it that uncomfortable, when you put it in a place to where it has to adapt dramatically. Good things happen, but it's not comfortable. It can be painful, right? And so when we attribute that not to something physical, but spiritual, what is a spiritual pain, right? What pain are we going to attribute to associate towards getting closer to our purpose? And there's a lot you were saying about just being frozen, going back to that, it sparked words. It was not only purposeful, it was fulfilling, excitement, desire, and vision. And I think when people get frozen, they're lacking that excitement. They're lacking that desire for life, for achievement. And then that brought me down to, okay, well, what about people like LeBron James versus he's the great amongst the greats. You know what I mean? He's the best amongst the best. Mm-hmm. What keeps him going? From the guy who spent 3 years, kind of fizzled out, kind of lost that passion, that desire to put in the hours, and then their career kind of got impacted by that. What keeps those guys going to get championship number 6 after they got number 5? Mm-hmm. What makes them just as fiery to wake up Kobe in the gym shooting 1,000 shots after he got 4 championships? Mm-hmm. Why does he want to get a 5th? And I think because their purpose in their mind is, I want to be the best. You know what I mean? They're chasing something that is so grand that will never die out. And so it keeps the flame burning because they're like, I'm chasing to be the best. Yep. And so if I'm not the best yet, I got work to do. They're not chasing to make it to the league. Some people's goal, I just want to make it to the league. Then once they make it to the league, they wonder why they don't have the motivation to wake up at 4 a.m, why they don't have the motivation to sacrifice going out on the weekend to go to the gym. They're like, dang, man, I had this fire all the way through high school, growing up in hardship, taking care of my family, getting to college. Now I made it, got a couple big checks. Where's that energy? We have to adjust that vision to cast something that we desire. And that desire, I think, is going to reignite that flame to keep us putting one left in front of the right through adversity. Because when you have that desire and you have that passion, you have that vision, now we have to understand we have to grow to that vision. We're not there yet. So if that's the new goal, we set a goal, we met it. Boom. Okay, so in order not to get frozen, we got to set a new goal. But in order to set the new goal, you have to now prepare for what? The winter. Because in order to grow to that goal, you got to get ready to be buried, because that's the only way that we're going to be able to embrace the darkness, the isolation that results in the outcome of actually growing into being able to achieve the new goal. So I think we have to embrace that and create something that we desire and connect it to purpose. And that's kind of what that scripture was saying that I was listening to. And it kind of opened my mind to walking in purpose. And it was saying that you only really fizz out because possessions do not equal fulfillment. And no matter how much we want to debate that, no matter how much we wish that wasn't so, because of how much effort and how much energy and how much time it takes to get to the position where you can obtain things and possess them, we wish that would fulfill us. But how many times do we talk to people who have the world and they're just like, well, what's next? Right? But when your possessions or the life that you create is a result to the outcome of the journey that you're on that never stops, right? Then you feel fulfilled.